Good morning, my brothers and sisters of Fountain House, Lahore. At the outset, I must congratulate the International Conference of Psychiatry, those who are organizer of this conference, especially respected Professor Abdul Javed, Professor Nashed Shahid Khan, Professor Khaled Mufti, and Professor Imran Haidar. I'm really privileged to give a talk in this conference in front of some esteemed audience. It is a historical day in my life to be invited by the Pakistan Psychiatric Research Center and Fountain House, Lahore, to participate and address in the International Psychiatric Conference. You know, I bring greetings to you from the entire fraternity of the Indian Psychiatric Society and pray that peace and good health be bestowed on the both our countries and across the world. The great Khalil Gibran said, yesterday is but today's memory, and tomorrow is today's dream. And as an international body of psychiatrists, we are here today to dream and plan for the innovation in mental health for tomorrow's world. You know, this is the journey, as I realized, has beginning in the year of 1948 with the birth of the leading movement of the Fountain House in USA to provide millions of Americans living with mental illness an opportunity to reach their goals and aspire to a better life. And the Fountain House Lahore has been trendsetter as a second fountain house of this world and planned with a great care by our late Professor Rashid Chaudhry sir in 1965. And the Pakistan Psychiatric Research Center has assumed a paramount importance in the field of research and education since 1980s as the academic wing of Fountain House here. In my journey as a psychiatrist, I have been blessed with the company of many friends from Pakistan who has taught me magnanimously the wealth of clinical knowledge as well as the great friendship. In recent years, I am fortunate to be touched by the various hands of my elder brother, Professor Abjal Javed, the president of World Psychiatric Association. I thank you all from the care showed by you and from core of my heart to invite me here. And I promise you that I'll visit Lahore with my family when the pandemic bids us adieu. Thank you so much. With this, I want to start my presentation. My topic for presentation is repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation in psychiatry, future, present, and past. Why choose this topic? Because if you see the neuromodulation, different topics, there is a set therapeutic ceilings. And if you gone through the number of publications per year, it shows clearly the different neuromodulation technique. TMS is on the top. There are lots of publications, lots of research work is on doing it, and it has an immense therapeutic value as we are using it very much nowadays in different conditions. This is how RTMS acts. It acts basically on the principle of Faraday's principle. What is Faraday's principle? It is the electric stimulation via magnetic induction. I repeat, it is not magnetic field, via magnetic induction. That does the effect, thus passing the current through the coil of wire and then inducing the magnetic field. And these induced current are the critical to the rate of charge of current to the specific area of the brain. Basically, this is the Faraday's principle, how to generate current out of this magnetic induction. So now I want to go to the history. In the history, if you see the ancient Greek using the catfish and the electric stingrays, then the Olds and the Milner experiments in the rats on the self-stimulation. After that, Luigi Galvani in 1780 discovered a bioelectrical basis of nerve impulses. And from there, the Luigi Ronaldo exploration of the above to the direct stimulation of the brain, he established. And thereafter, there are lots of research we are doing on brain localization of functioning, interconnected of the brain in the different areas. Like very recently, we have discovered different connectums. And definitely neuroplasticity or the plasticity of the brain is a major area of research work nowadays. As I am saying about the history, you know that D. Arsenal Val is a French psychiatrist, a French scientist. In the year of 1896, reported on the first application of TMS in humans. It not elicited by the visual perception, vertigo, and synchrome in the subject whose heads are placed in this large electromagnetic coil. And there are other funny attempts too, like Thomson in 1910, in 1911, Magnuson and Stevens also attempted like this. And ultimately in the 1984, the Barker is the person who first applied the RTMS or magnetic transcranial stimulator in the year 1984. So now you have to see what is RTMS machine. This is the pictures of different RTM machines from different companies. And this is, I am using this machine in my clinic at Calcutta. So there are so many types of brain stimulation. Today we cannot discuss all the things, but if you divide the brain stimulation, you can divide very clearly two parts, non-invasive and invasive. And non-invasive, definitely, nowadays it is very important, is TMS, transmagnetic stimulation. The most important part is transmagnetic stimulation does not induce convulsion, does not need to implant anything inside the body. It is basically non-invasive procedure. So acceptability by the patients is very, very well. Now the question is, why repeat it? Because once is not enough. You have to give repeated sitting, and also repeated pulses are given to this by this machine. And as it is a non-invasive, so it is a transcranial. Magnetic, I have discussed. Magnetic, basically, it is create a magnetic induction and stimulation. Yes, one point is important. Stimulation not always excitatory. Sometimes it may inhibitory too. So machine has two distinct parts. Number one is high current pulse generator, which producing current like about 5,000 amperes or more. And number two, there is a stimulating coil producing magnetic pulses in the field of strength of 1 Tesla or more than a pulse duration of around 1 millisecond. So in a typical machine, which consists of 2000 volt, 10,000 ampere, pulse 1 by 4,000 seconds, bipolar pulse, stimulation at the lower energy, and the coil mostly used in the figure of 8, and other coils also available. This is pulse, and per second it can be, pulse is a sound click, sound of the single click, and per second, if it is a 5 click, So it is a 5 hertz, and this is called an intermediate. One pulse is mostly 20 seconds. Sometimes it may be more or less, and each set is called it one train. So it may be excitatory. When we call it excitatory, then where it is more than 1 hertz, and it is, if it is less than 1 hertz, then we call it inhibitor. There are other type of TMS also, like patterned RTMS, which is theta burst. And what is the mechanism of action? Yeah, I mentioned it. It is on the basis of the Faraday's principle. It works, but actually the coil is placed on your head, and the magnetic field thus created and undergoes the attenuation by the extracerebral tissue like scalp, cranial bones, meninges, CSF layer. And then this magnetic field able to induce the electrical field sufficient to depolarize the superficial action to activate the neural network of the cortex under the skull. And if you see the effects, it may be immediate effect, intermediate effect, and there are some long-term effects. Immediate effect includes the jerky movements, perception of flashes, lights, and other behavioral effects may be there. And intermediate effect, definitely it is a low frequency. If it is, then long-term depression can affect. If it is a low frequency, and if it repeated high frequency stimulation can produce long-term potentiation, which is most important part for treating depressive patients. And the long-term effect, if you consider, then it can produce a sustained changes in the activity of HP axis and the gene expression. What are the coil used in RTMS? It may be the circular. Initially it is used and have a wide action radius. For instance, when placed over the vertex, it is like that, and which limits the reason a focal stimulation is short. But after that it comes, which is used maximally nowadays, is a figure of 8 coil, which reducing the stimulation zone to a few square centimeters and making it more sensitive and to coil handle the orientation. You can be very much specific. You can apply the stimulation very specific site of the brain. And other coils like double coin angulated coil. This is also to large circular coil forming the obtuse angle. Basically, it is used. There are lots of study in the cerebral hermes. They are using it. And at the expense of the stronger focus, this type of coil useful for reaching the deeper target. In fact, if you go to the deeper target or posterior fossa, then it is very much useful. And geometry of the coil determines the focality of the magnetic field and the induced current, hence also the targeted brain area. So different shaped coil is available. That is why it is important. Now the threshold. Resting motor threshold. What is the rest motor threshold? It is the minimum stimulation intensity needed to elicit a recordable EMG response, at least 5 out of 10 EMG responses with an amplitude of greater than 50 microvolt. Clinically, we do it. We place the coil on the vertex and we see the movement of the thumb, adductor pollicis brevis, where you can see that after we are increasing the intensity and see in what intensity the movement of the thumb is flickering, and that is the actually the when it is started, that is the actually the motor threshold. This is like that only. This is the muscle. Whenever you give this on the brain, it comes through the muscles, and when it acts, we can know that it will act. Relative intensity of the strength of stimulation is often referred as the percentage of the motor threshold. Sometimes when I find out the motor threshold, we'll give sometimes 70% of it intensity wise when I apply it therapeutically. Sometimes we can use it 100% also. Next is why we are choosing the motor cortex. You know that it is one of the few areas in the brain where the TM is associated with easily observable phenomena and better correlation. And motor threshold is measured on the right adductor pollicis brevis muscle. First, you set the amplitude at 60 to 70%, how to do it, and place the coil above the APB motor cortex, approximately 5 centimeter below the center line of the head. And for the figure of 8 coil, it is 45-degree angle and coil must be tangential to the skull. Keep the position, reduce the amplitude until the lowest response reached, and take note the few amplitude, and this is the motor threshold, as I discussed before. So what are the contraindications? If something metal is present inside the brain or just outside the brain, you should take it as one of the major contraindication, like aneurysm of the clips, coils, bullet fragments, cardiac pacemaker, implanted stimulator if otherwise present, sometimes facial tattoos because they may use the magnetic ink, metal implants in the ears and eyes, stents in the neck, lesion in the brain. If there is a history of epilepsy, history of syncope, and pre-existing hearing loss or tinnitus, you have to find out this and consider it very seriously as a contraindication. And what are the side effects? Very, very rare. I'm telling you from my personal experience too, and also literatures tell like that. Uncommon and mild side effects are transient scalp pain or discomfort. Sometimes they are complaining of heat sensation, tinnitus, heaviness above the head. You can find some transient cognitive deficit, stiffness in the neck, headache, seizure, syncope. So if you see, it is safer in different trial. And medication, 5% in a single site study is relatively contraindication in the two groups. Basically, you have to see the most important point is what are the chances of developing seizure, and number two, whether there is a metal implant is there or not. So what are the, you have to conscious about it because it is a novel stimulation protocols. And if it is, there is a personal history of epilepsy is there, so you have to be cautious about seizure. If there is any vascular, traumatic, tumoral, infectious, or metabolic lesion in the brain, or he is under any medication which can decrease the lower the seizure threshold, and there is a history of sleep deprivation or alcoholism. So there should be a screen, TMS adult safety screen, it is called. Have you ever had an adverse reaction to the TMS? You have to find out there is a history of adverse reaction or a history of seizure or any history of EEG changes or a history of any brain lesion like stroke or neurosurgery, whatever it may be, or any metallic implant as I mentioned, or any, they are taking some medications which can cause seizure, lower the seizure threshold like bupropion, or the woman is childbearing age, you are sexually active. If so, are not using the reliable method of birth control. You have to see all these things. But in pregnant women also you can use this RTMS. I think there are lots of studies, though whatever this may be the reason, but there is nothing contraindications like that. And does anyone have a family history of epilepsy? If there is a family history, then you have to, this is not a absolute contraindication, but definitely you have to cautious regarding this. And whether before giving RTMS, everybody needs to sort of counseling. You have to let him know what is RTMS, how does it act, and what are the side effects, maybe the rare but mild, and what are the things you have to discuss with them. And one thing is most important, you have to take the consent before giving TMS to anyone. So what are the indications? In psychiatry, the US FDA approved only the major depression with at least one antidepressant trial failure. And there are one recent indications they are approving also in the migraine. And there are lots of off-label uses like anxiety disorder, panic disorder, PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, OCD. In fact, schizophrenia, if it is a persistent auditory hallucination, there are lots of works on it. In the negative symptoms, somatoform pain disorder, tic disorders, eating disorders, even in the addiction disorders, it acts very good. In some studies also shows like that. Neurological, neuropathic pain, movement disorder, strokes, amyloidotic lateral sclerosis, all are there are lots of studies done on even in multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, cognitive dysfunction, tinnitus. And you know that in Parkinson's disease also it is used very much. If you see the evidence-based studies, yes, it is the depression where there are lots of papers, like 850 papers, including GI original PCTs with at least 10 patients who received active stimulation. And the efficacy of the high frequency RTMS at the left dorsolateral prefrontal cortex in depression is very much definite and is defined, definite and level A recommendation. That is a high recommended, highly successfully use this procedure. And other uses are in bipolar disorder, like these all are the type B or type C, level B or level C recommendation, all these things. In the negative syndrome of schizophrenia, auditory hallucination and schizophrenia. I'm not going into detail. All these studies are the mixed reactions. Maybe in future they will direct us much more specifically in which conditions we can use. OCD, you know that NICE also recommended the uses of TMS in OCD patients. There are lots of studies which suggest that it acts very much in OCD, and the area of interest is definitely supplementary motor area content, SMA. And if you see the summary of evidences, the level A recommendation I mentioned in depression, especially in the resistant depression or in one antidepressant trial failure, they wanted to FDA approved in those cases. And it is very much effective in depression. There is no doubt of it. Some studies shows it is 60 to 70%, maybe some studies showed more than that, and very quick response too. And anxiety disorder, OCD, auditory hallucination of schizophrenia, persistent auditory hallucination, I mean, cognitive symptom, negative symptoms of schizophrenia, addiction and craving and conversion, all these indications, there are lots of studies are going on, and also lots of studies are there. There are mixed reactions, but I think there must be a positive outcome. And like whenever you find out the specific site and how to give this RTMS to the different people with different illnesses. So neuromodulation started from ECT in the year 1938. Now it is coming, and it is 219, 220, 21. There are lots of new modulation, new processing has been done under this now navigated TSM, deep TMS, and with TMS with robotic arm. This is the all now happened. And one of the new thing happened in TMS is pattern TMS. Deep TMS, you know, if you consider the deep TMS, as I mentioned, there is a Shobit Gorg and et al. They have found it that efficacy of the cerebral vermal deep TMS double cone I showed earlier, that repeated transmagnetic stimulation in schizophrenia. They get some good results, and that cone-shaped coils for deep penetration, they are using that. And also the people are finding out the new sites like precuneus, corticofrontal cortex, parietal lobule, cerebellar vermis. All these new sites are also we are finding out. Maybe in future we will find out different sites for different action, for different illnesses. And also now we are using navigated TMS, which is very important. You know that navigated TMS is you can pinpoint the site of where you can give the TM stimulation, and the result will be definitely better than non-specific site if you give. It is precise localization of the brain region and a precise delivery of the stimulation. These are the navigated stimulation. I can show some pictures. And next is robotic arm to control the participant's head and the experimenter's hand movement, or who is giving. So it definitely, some manual errors are there. They definitely limit this, and these are the robotic arm. And in fact, the enhancements of the human cognitive performance using the transcranial magnetic stimulation with the robotic arm, there is a studies there. So what is the future? Future is we have to do more and more studies with adequate sample size, accurate anatomical and functional targeting, clearly defined and clinically valid endpoint measures, randomized studies design in which parallel groups are favored, and large enough doses combined with new accelerated treatment protocols and priming the strategies. These are the things in future we have to do. And I am confident, and we all are confident, if it is a very good, it will be a very good therapeutic tool in our hand in future. I'm just sharing my personal experience in my clinic. I have used it more than 500 patients, and more than 80% patients are depressions, and OCD is there, chronic schizophrenia is there with persistent hallucination. I have used 5, and chronic schizophrenia with severe depression. I have used it in 10 patients. And my depression results, in fact, my success comes in more around 80%. Maybe it is a bit higher than the overall findings, like 60 to 70%, but I'm very much happy with this. And OCD patient, 20% drop out there, and 50% gave a moderate response. Most important thing is quality of life is improved a lot, and intensity of the auditory hallucination reduced. I told you before also, in one of my patient, I have given chronic schizophrenia with auditory, persistent auditory hallucination. After 10 to 12 setting, I asked her, please tell me how is feeling you. She said that, sir, auditory hallucination is still there, but intensity is very, very less right now. And but I am feeling overall very good. Maybe the mood symptom is increased, and the quality of life is also improved. So QOL is very improved, not only in these cases, also in depression, and very much well accepted treatment nowadays. Thank you so much for the patient hearing. Again, my best wishes to all my friends present here, to all my brothers and sisters of Pakistan. Thank you so much.